Right. We've just got the statement from the Ministry of External Affairs, and they've said the United States has in recent days targeted India's oil imports from Russia. We're breaking MEA's statement. They've said we've already made clear our position on these issues, including the fact that our imports are based on market factors and done with the overall objective of ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people of India. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that US should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their national interest. We reiterate that these actions are unfair, unjustified, unreasonable. We will take all actions necessary to protect its national interest. Michael Kugelman, do you believe that this will further provoke Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, he clearly has already been provoked enough. I mean, this is going to be a very difficult confrontation to exit. But I would agree with what Ambassador Kashyap just said, that now emotions are high, temperatures are high, but in due course, I think that the two sides are going to have to come back to the negotiating table. That really would work out for India's interests, given the nature of its relationship with Russia, and given that it is not in any position or mood to scale back or, if not, eliminate its imports of cheap Russian oil. But I think that negotiation, assuming it picks up again, would be very difficult because it does seem that the U.S. side wants India to make concessions across the board, and India has stated its red lines, and that entails not easing protections in sensitive sectors, particularly agriculture, the dairy industry, and so on. So unless there's more of a willingness on the part of the U.S. side to relent and make some of its own concessions, it could be difficult to come back to the negotiating table. I think in the meantime, here, India's ongoing talks with the EU about the trade deal they're trying to come out with becomes much more important. India needs to look for ways to defray the potential damage or to ease the potential damage of these tariffs that could be coming from the US. And in that regard, getting that deal with the EU by the end of the year, the EU, of course, being another key destination for Indian exports, that would be big. That would be significant. I think it could give India a bit of breathing room. But no, the U.S.-India relationship is experiencing one of its most difficult moments. I'd say its most difficult moment over the last 2 decades of strategic partnership. But it is possible to get over these obstacles. And if you look at how business leaders, industry leaders in both countries look at the relationship, they want things to work. They are so keen to engage more commercially, to focus in these new growth areas like AI and tech. There's so much that could be done. And yet one wonders the impact, the psychological impact that these new tariffs could have on business leaders in both countries that don't want to see any type of tariffs like these, much less this potential 50% levy that could be coming soon.
Right. Let me go across to Ambassador Bhattacharya at this point. Ambassador Bhattacharya, difficult moment. If you were in the Ministry of External Affairs, I'm sure it would have been a very difficult time. But what are our options, legally speaking? Would it make any sense to go to the WTO, even with the sectoral tariffs? We've tried to have a negotiation. We said that we will take action at the WTO, which we haven't so far on those sectoral tariffs. Would it make any sense to use any legal options?
Well, let me first say that this is not the end of the road. And I would continue to maintain that there are still various options that are available and for both sides. Let us not forget that India is the largest democracy and the United States is the most prosperous democracy. And there is an understanding bipartisan on both sides which seeks to make these democracies be in tango for the future of mankind. And I think there is a very broad understanding on that. And there is understanding that this is going to be across sectors and everyone is interested in investing in this particular partnership. Who would have anticipated a week ago that this is what we would be facing today? So I'm quite optimistic that a week from now, it is not necessarily that this is what the scenario is, because there are enough sane minds on both sides that will sit down and chat to each other and bring about a certain resolution. I do not think this is the time to go to the WTO. The WTO, in any case, has been rather ineffective in recent times. I believe the options really are to chat bilaterally at this point of time.
Right. What I would like to understand from you are India's compulsions at this stage. We had opened up quite a bit. We were almost ready to give US unprecedented access for their industrial goods. including automobiles, even some of the low-hanging fruits when it came to agriculture. We reduced tariffs on bourbon whiskey. We reduced tariffs on imported cars in the union budget. We removed the Google tax. But what is holding India back right now? And what are our options, Ambassador Bhattacharya? Because, Russia is just too big a strategic partner. 70% of our defense inventory is of Russian origin. 35% of oil came from Russia in the month of July. You can't just close the tap. These are long-term contracts. EU is also buying. In fact, the amount EU bought since the war began is almost 74% of the Russian defense budget.
That's exactly I think there are two eggs in the basket. One is about the trade deal that the two sides are negotiating. And I think we can find a certain commonality of interests, which will take us towards a consensus and an agreement. Don't forget that Prime Minister Modi was one of the very early ones to visit White House and to look at a trade deal which would take our bilateral trade to $500 billion. And the idea that you can actually expand the cake will probably mean that you have more for both sides to chew upon. And that, I think, is something that we can do. We can find solutions on all the issues on the trade front. The second issue, the second egg that has come in, is the question about Russia, which has come up in more serious manner, particularly after the NATO meetings that were held earlier last month. And I think what is happening on this is that there needs to be a certain understanding that India is not and cannot be an alliance partner. India is
I've read it out.
Reliable strategic partner of the United States and for the Western world, the democratic free world. And it's in that particular context, there has to be a recognition of the free world that India will be a champion of that particular cause, as it has always been, but it does not have to be an alliance partner which has to toe the line on everything. And therefore, the very deep relations that we have with the Russians will actually continue. In fact, there has to be a recognition and understanding that India buying Russian oil has actually lent greater stability to the global economy.
Right. Michael Kugelman, do you feel that perhaps we've come to a point of reckoning in the India-US relationship? As Ambassador Bhattacharya said, we have to continue. And as this MEA statement has also pointed out, that India finds US actions to be unfair, unjustified, unreasonable. We have to take decisions when it comes to ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people in India. We will continue doing whatever is in our national interest as per market demand, market prices, geopolitical situations. We cannot just disconnect from Russia because US wants us to. Do you think now is coming a time when probably we're going to see a difficult road in India-US relations for the next few years?